Adeline stood frozen at the altar, her veil doing little to hide the panic in her eyes as the groom David smiled nervously beside her. The grand ballroom of the Peninsula Hotel in downtown Chicago was packed with smiling faces, all expecting a perfect storybook ending from the Nguyen family's eldest daughter. But as the minister cleared his throat and began the vows, Adeline's gaze locked with Jade's across the stage. The woman standing tall in her navy bridesmaid dress, her face a mask of barely contained pain, knowing this day would either bury their love forever or tear everything apart. The chandeliers cast a warm golden glow over the 300 guests seated in rows of white chairs adorned with silk ribbons and fresh roses. Adeline could feel the weight of every stare from her Vietnamese American community, the same people who had praised her parents for building a thriving import business from nothing after fleeing Vietnam in the 90s. Her mother Evelyn sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, looking proud, yet fragile. Her father Robert, beside her, his posture rigid like the successful businessman he had become after years of 16-hour days. They had sacrificed everything for their daughters Adeline and her younger sister Emma, so that the girls could have the American dream: education, stability, respect. And now Adeline was repaying that debt by standing here ready to say I do to a man she had met only 6 months ago, a good match from another respected family in their circle. David was kind enough, stable, a corporate lawyer with a steady smile. But he was not the one who made her heart race in the quiet moments, not the one who understood the weight she carried every single day. Her mind drifted back as the minister spoke about love and commitment. 3 years earlier at the downtown ad agency where she worked as a senior account manager, she had met Jade Thompson, the sharp, witty graphic designer, who joined the team fresh from grad school. Their first coffee run turned into late-night project sessions, then stolen weekends hiking in the Indiana dunes or picnicking by Lake Michigan. Jade, with her warm brown eyes and quiet strength, had become Adeline's safe place, the only person who saw the real her beyond the perfect daughter role. They had kept it hidden at first because Adeline knew the risks in their tight-knit world where gossip spread faster than wildfire at church potlucks and family gatherings. But love had a way of making risks feel worth it, until that rainy Tuesday when Emma walked in on them kissing in Adeline's apartment after a supposed girls' night. The discovery hit like a bomb. Evelyn had cried for hours, asking how Adeline could do this to the family after everything they had endured, the whispers already starting in the community about why the successful Nguyen girl was still single at 27. Robert had slammed his fist on the dining table, his voice low and final. You will end this now or you will lose everything: the company, the house, the respect we built. They gave her an ultimatum: date men from good families or watch the family business lose clients from the old guard who viewed anything outside tradition as a stain. Adeline had tried to fight it at first, telling her parents this was who she was, but the tears in her mother's eyes and the cold silence from her father broke her. She agreed to meet David, introduced at a community dinner, and within weeks the engagement was announced as a way to quiet the rumors and save face. Jade had begged her not to go through with it during secret meetings in parking lots or late calls where voices cracked with pain. How can you throw us away for their approval? Adeline had replied through sobs, because they gave me life and opportunities. One cannot destroy what they built for my own happiness. The guilt had become a constant companion, eating at her during dress fittings and cake tastings. Every smile she forced felt like a betrayal to the woman she truly loved. Now standing here with the ring heavy on her finger, Adeline could barely breathe. The minister paused and asked the traditional question: if anyone here has reason why these two should not be married, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. The room fell into a respectful hush. Adeline's hands shook harder. Across from her, Jade took a small step forward, her eyes burning with a decision that had been building for months. The air thickened with unspoken tension as Jade's fingers tightened around the small bouquet she carried. Adeline knew in that instant that the next few seconds would change everything: the price of silence, or the cost of truth, both paths paved with loss. Her heart screamed for Jade to stay quiet, yet a deeper part of her, the part that had whispered doubts in the mirror every morning, hoped for the opposite. The guests shifted slightly, sensing something off, but still smiling politely, unaware of the storm about to break. Evelyn leaned forward slightly, her face a mix of joy and underlying worry, while Robert nodded approvingly at David. Emma sat beside them, biting her lip, her own hidden struggles with family expectations mirroring her sister's in ways no one else knew. Time seemed to slow as Jade's gaze never left Adeline's, the silent conversation between them louder than any words. This was the moment Adeline had feared and secretly longed for, the point where all the forced smiles and swallowed truths collided with reality. She closed her eyes for a split second, praying for strength whatever came next. Jade's heels clicked softly against the polished marble as she moved toward the microphone stand positioned for the toasts later, but now standing there like a silent accusation. The minister blinked in confusion. The guests murmured lightly, thinking it was part of the program. Adeline's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing back to the months of escalating pressure that had led them here. After the discovery, Evelyn had organized family meetings at their suburban home in Naperville, where photos of Adeline and Jade from a weekend trip were laid out like evidence in a trial. "You think this is love," her mother had sobbed, "but it is a phase that will destroy us all. The community will talk, the clients will pull out. What will happen to your father's business, the one he built? So you could have better than we did." Robert had been quieter, but his words cut deeper. "You are my daughter, but I will not watch you shame this family after we left everything behind in Vietnam to give you freedom here." They had introduced David at a charity gala, framing it as a natural match. His family owned a chain of pharmacies, respected and stable. Adeline had gone on dates with him, feeling like an actress in a bad play, smiling at his jokes while her phone buzzed with messages from Jade asking why she was doing this. The guilt had grown with each approval from the community elders at the Vietnamese church, where whispers about the Nguyen girl finally settling down replaced the earlier rumors. She had tried to explain to Jade during a stolen lunch in a quiet cafe on the north side, "I cannot turn my back on them. They sacrificed their youth, their health, everything for me and Emma." Jade had gripped her hand across the table, her voice breaking. "But what about us? What about the life we planned, the apartment we looked at, the dreams we shared? Am I just collateral damage in your duty?" Adeline had cried that night alone in her car parked blocks from Jade's building, knowing the price she was paying was her own soul piece by piece. The engagement party had been a lavish affair at the same hotel where the wedding was now unfolding, with toasts about family values and tradition. Adeline had stood beside David, her smile plastered on, while her sister Emma pulled her aside in the restroom later. "Are you sure about this, sis? I see how you look at Jade at work, the way she looks back." Emma herself had her own secrets, a quiet relationship with a woman from college that she kept buried deeper than Adeline ever had, afraid of the same fallout. The pressure had intensified in the weeks leading up when a distant aunt called to congratulate, but slipped in comments about how lucky they were to avoid scandal. Adeline had confronted her parents one final time in their living room the night before the rehearsal dinner, telling them she was not sure this was right. Evelyn had grabbed her hands, tears streaming. "This is not about sure, this is about doing what is expected, so we can hold our heads high in the community. You owe us that much." Robert had added quietly, "Think of the company contracts that could vanish if word spreads again. We barely survived the last rumor." Adeline had nodded, broken, agreeing once more, the internal war raging between love and loyalty tearing her apart. Jade had shown up at the rehearsal as planned, the maid of honor role Adeline had insisted on because she could not bear to have her completely gone, even if it meant watching her lover stand by as she married someone else. During the rehearsal dinner, Jade had cornered her in a hallway, her voice low and urgent. "Leave with me tonight. We can start over somewhere new. The cost is high, but so is living a lie." Adeline had pulled away, whispering, "I cannot. My family would never forgive me. I would never forgive myself." The pain in Jade's eyes that night had been a mirror to her own, the betrayal already starting long before the wedding day. Now in the ballroom, as Jade reached the microphone, the guests quieted, expecting a sweet toast. Adeline's mind flashed to all the times she had chosen family over self, the promotions she earned at work while hiding her true self, the holidays spent smiling through questions about grandchildren, the nights she lay awake wondering if happiness was a luxury she was not allowed. The price had been steep, her relationship with Jade strained to breaking, with arguments that left both raw, Jade feeling like a secret to be ashamed of, Adeline feeling like a traitor to her own heart. Yet here they were, the culmination of every difficult choice, every sacrifice made in the name of honor. Jade cleared her throat, the sound cutting through the hall like a knife. Adeline's pulse thundered in her ears, knowing the next words could shatter the illusion her family had so carefully constructed. The groom shifted uncomfortably, sensing the shift in atmosphere, while Evelyn's face tightened with worry. The entire room hung on the edge, the tension thick enough to choke on, as Jade's eyes met Adeline's one last time, full of love and resolve. This was the moment where all the internal battles, the family ultimatums, and the societal expectations collided head-on. And no one in the hall except the two women at the center knew how high the stakes truly were. Jade's voice came steady but laced with emotion as she gripped the microphone. "I have something to say that cannot wait." The room fell into an uneasy silence, some guests smiling politely, others shifting in their seats. Adeline felt the world tilt, her knees weakening as flashbacks flooded her. The first time she and Jade had admitted their feelings during a team offsite in Wisconsin, the way Jade's laugh had made the fear of coming out feel manageable for a brief moment. But the family had always been the anchor, the reason Adeline had buried that part of herself deeper after each confrontation. Emma had tried to mediate in private, telling Adeline that their parents' generation saw things differently. The old country values of faith and duty were not just words but survival tools. Yet Emma's own quiet support had given Adeline moments of hope, until the pressure from the community became too much. A cousin mentioning at a gathering how proud they were that Adeline was finally doing the right thing by settling down. The moral dilemma had kept Adeline awake for weeks, weighing her happiness against the pain she would cause if she walked away, the betrayal her parents would feel after years of sacrifice, the looks from neighbors at the temple, the potential loss of the family legacy. She had chosen the path of least visible destruction, agreeing to the marriage, even as her heart screamed otherwise, the price being the slow erosion of her spirit, and the growing distance from Jade, who had started pulling away in hurt, but stayed close enough to be made of honor out of love that refused to die. As Jade continued, the hall grew quieter. Adeline remembered the night she had tried to end things completely, sitting in Jade's apartment, tears streaming, as she said, "This is the only way. I cannot live with myself if I destroy them." Jade had argued back fiercely, "Love is not a destruction, it is the reason we fight for better, but you are choosing their comfort over our truth." The conversation had ended with Jade holding her tight, both women knowing the cost of that choice would be paid in loneliness and regret. The societal prejudice had shown itself in subtle ways at work, where colleagues made offhand comments about family values, in promotions meetings where stability meant traditional marriage. Adeline had swallowed it all, pushing forward with wedding plans, the dress fittings where her mother beamed with relief, the venue booking that cemented the commitment. Each step had come with a fresh wave of internal conflict. Am I weak for giving in or strong for protecting what matters? Jade had confronted her again 2 weeks before the wedding in a parked car near the lake, their hands intertwined one last time before the final preparations. "If you go through with this, I will have to stand there and watch, but I cannot promise silence forever. The truth deserves to be heard." Adeline had kissed her forehead, whispering, "Please let me do this my way," the pain in her voice matching Jade's. The betrayal felt mutual, Adeline betraying their love, Jade feeling forced to witness it. The guests now leaned forward as Jade's presence at the microphone became impossible to ignore. Evelyn's face paled, Robert's jaw clenched. Adeline's mind raced with the prices already paid, the friends who had distanced themselves after rumors, the sister who carried her own hidden burdens, the self she had lost in trying to be the perfect daughter. The drama had built like a storm, the psychological toll manifesting in anxiety attacks before dress rehearsals, the social pressure from aunts and uncles who called regularly to congratulate and remind her of family duty. Yet in the quiet moments, Adeline had questioned if the right choice was the one that hurt the least people, or the one that honored her truth. Jade stood there, the embodiment of that question, her decision to speak now a direct challenge to every compromise Adeline had made. The air in the ballroom crackled with anticipation, the unexpected consequence of months of suppressed emotion finally breaking free. Adeline's heart pounded, knowing whatever Jade said next would force a reckoning, the kind where no one walked away unscathed, the family ties tested, the love redefined, the moral lines redrawn in blood and tears. Jade adjusted the microphone, her voice clear and unwavering. "This marriage cannot happen." Gasps rippled through the hall. Adeline's world narrowed to that single statement, the months of planning, the forced smiles, the internal battles all crashing down. In the weeks before the wedding, the pressure had reached its peak, with Evelyn organizing final family dinners, where she recounted stories of their immigration struggles, the boat, the camps, the starting over with nothing but pride. "You owe us this," her mother had said softly over tea. "The community looks to us as an example of success and stability." Adeline had nodded through the guilt, her own thoughts a whirlwind of doubt. Is my love for Jade selfish when their sacrifices were so great? David had been patient, sensing something off, but attributing it to nerves, his family equally invested in the union for business ties and social standing. Jade had kept her distance, mostly communicating through pained texts, but showing up for every bridesmaid duty, the fittings, the bachelorette where she had danced with forced cheer while Adeline watched her with longing. The betrayal cut deep for both. The decision to proceed had cost Adeline Jade's full trust, and cost Jade her peace. Yet the love remained a quiet fire that refused to extinguish. As the guests whispered among themselves, Jade pressed on. "I have stood by because I love Adeline enough to let her choose. but I cannot watch her sacrifice her truth anymore. The revelation hung in the air, the shocking confession that Adeline and Jade shared a 3-year relationship built on genuine connection, not the phase her family claimed. Evelyn rose halfway, her hand to her mouth, Robert's face turning red with anger and disbelief. The social fallout was immediate, some guests looking away in discomfort, others staring in open shock. The prejudice of the community laid bare in their reactions. Adeline's mind reeled with the consequences, the family business potentially losing face, the whispers that would spread like wildfire through their circles, the price her parents had warned about now realized. Yet in that chaos a strange clarity emerged, the years of internal conflict, the moral dilemmas of duty versus authenticity, the trade-offs of happiness for approval, all converging. Jade had paid her own price, staying silent for so long, enduring the role of supportive friend while her heart broke watching the woman she loved walk toward a life without her. The confrontation at the altar was the ultimate act of love and defiance, the decision to speak despite knowing it could end friendships, careers, and family bonds. The drama unfolded in slow motion as security hovered uncertain. The minister stepped back. Adeline felt tears sting her eyes, the weight of every choice she had made, the forced dates, the hidden tears, the moments she had almost called off the wedding only to be pulled back by a late-night call from her mother reminding her of the family's dreams. The societal pressure had been relentless, the church group that subtly excluded those who strayed, the business associates who valued traditional images. Emma had squeezed her hand earlier in the day, whispering, "I support you whatever you decide," but the fear in her eyes showed the shared cost. Now with Jade's words echoing, Adeline faced the hardest decision, yet stand by the family that raised her or choose the love that made her feel alive. The unexpected consequence of the forced marriage plan was this public reckoning, the hall dead silent, as the truth settled, the prices paid becoming clear in every shocked expression, every averted gaze. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes before chaos erupted. Guests murmured loudly, some standing, Evelyn crying out in Vietnamese mixed with English, "How could you?" Robert demanding. Jade stepped down, his voice booming. Adeline's legs nearly gave way as the reality hit. The revelation had shattered the illusion in one sentence, the family honor they fought to protect now exposed. Jade stood firm, her eyes on Adeline alone, the love there undeniable despite the pain caused. In the aftermath, security escorted some disruptive guests out. But the core damage was done. The community would talk for years, the business might suffer short-term losses as old allies distanced themselves. Adeline thought back to the final preparations the night before, when she had sat alone in her childhood bedroom staring at old photos of her parents young and hopeful, the sacrifice they made so she could have opportunities. The guilt had nearly made her back out again, but the fear of disappointing them won. Jade had sent one last message, "I will be there tomorrow, not as your secret, but as someone who refuses to let you disappear." The decision to speak had been Jade's ultimate stand, the moral choice to prioritize truth over comfort, the betrayal of the family's plan, but the loyalty to their shared history. As the hall descended into whispers and raised voices, Adeline stepped forward, her voice small at first but growing. "Jade is right." The words surprised even her, the awakening coming in that moment, the years of suppressing her identity, the internal torment, the family pressure, all giving way to clarity. Evelyn sobbed. Robert looked betrayed, but in his eyes a flicker of understanding. Perhaps the price of their expectations had been too high. The drama continued outside the hotel as family members argued in the lobby, the societal prejudice manifesting in cold shoulders and hasty departures. Adeline and Jade stood together for the first time publicly, the cost immediate, the loss of some family support, the whispers that would follow, but also the freedom that came with honesty. The trade-offs were real, Adeline losing the easy approval she had chased, Jade carrying the guilt of forcing the issue, but both paying for a chance at authenticity. Emma hugged them both later, whispering, "You did what I never could," the shared struggle binding the sisters closer. In the days that followed the confrontation, the family dynamics shifted, Evelyn eventually reaching out in tentative calls, Robert maintaining distance, but not cutting ties completely. The business weathered the storm through resilience and new clients who valued honesty. Adeline moved in with Jade in a modest apartment on the south side, starting over with therapy sessions where they unpacked the trauma, the moral dilemmas, the right and wrong of their choices. The awakening was painful but real, the love that survived the test stronger for it. The prices paid lingered, lost inheritance opportunities, strained community ties, emotional scars that took months to heal. But the alternative, the sham marriage, would have cost more, the slow death of self. The story of their courage spread quietly, inspiring others in similar situations, the drama of that wedding day becoming a turning point for personal truths in a world that demanded conformity. Months passed and Adeline and Jade rebuilt slowly, the initial chaos giving way to quiet strength. The family eventually attended a small gathering where tentative conversations replaced outright anger. Evelyn admitting the pressure she had placed had come from her own fears of losing the life they fought for. Robert nodding silently, acknowledging the harm caused by rigid expectations. The community gossip faded as new stories took its place. The business stabilized through hard work and integrity. Adeline found peace in her career, focusing on projects that mattered. Jade thriving in her design work, their relationship open and supported by true friends. Yet the scars remained, the price of the forced path, and the public revelation, a constant reminder of the conflicts navigated, the betrayals endured, the sacrifices made by every woman involved. Evelyn for her cultural beliefs, Jade for her love, Adeline for her awakening. The moral questions lingered in late-night talks. Was it fair to challenge family honor for personal happiness? Or was silence the greater betrayal? Adeline had chosen truth, the decision costing temporary family harmony, but gaining self-respect, the internal peace she had craved for years. The drama had transformed them all, Emma finding her own voice in the aftermath, stepping toward her hidden truth with more confidence. The societal prejudices they faced had lessened in their immediate circle, but the broader world still challenged them daily, the choice to live authentically a daily act of courage. As they sat on their balcony one evening watching the Chicago skyline, Adeline turned to Jade, the woman who had risked everything, to speak. "Thank you for not letting me disappear." Jade smiled through tears, the price they both paid worth the life they now shared, the love that had survived fire and judgment. The story ended not in perfect resolution, but in hard-earned growth, the costs clear, the gains profound, the path forward one of acceptance and resilience. Was Adeline right to finally choose her truth over family expectations? Or did the family have a valid claim on her sacrifice given everything they had endured to build her future?